Hi, this is Jeff Short, and this is another episode of Christian Answers. And today I will be looking at the comments by the two presidential candidates on abortion. That is the very important topic that we've covered a number of times in our program. And I'm going to look at what they have said most recently about abortion. One was very strong in condemnation against abortion, and the other one was very strong in promotion of abortion. And so it gives you a clear contrast in the way these two would-be candidates, presidential candidates, are responding. And as Christians, we have to be thankful that we have a major party candidate who is still able to articulate a pro-life position. As Christians, we value life at every stage of development, whether that's at conception or at in the senior years at the very end of life. And we want to encourage anyone who speaks out for life. And so I remember watching a video by the Roman Catholic traditionalist Michael Matt on his video program, The Remnant TV, and he made the good point that it's amazing that we still, in our secular age, still have a major party candidate promoting the pro-life position, because there's coming a day, and it could even be the next election cycle in 4 years, where even the so-called conservative, the so-called Republican candidate is pro-abortion. Now, I hope that day never comes, but the way things are headed, that day may well be upon us in the next election or the one after that. But we still do have a candidate who is pro-life, at least says he's pro-life, and still is articulating pro-life positions. So we want to talk about that, and we want to talk about what he said. I want to talk a little bit about the criticisms of the secular left to what he has said. And I want to counter those arguments, because he has come under fire for what he says about abortion. He simply stated what is true, but the secular left doesn't want to hear that, and they don't want to spin it that way. And so, like the other candidate, they don't like the way he framed the answer, and so they're going to try to discredit that because they want abortion to be legal. They want a woman to have the right to murder her baby in the womb at any time. And so they want to discredit any opposition argument to their position. So we're going to look at an article or a couple articles. We're going to look at a few videos. We're going to look at some articles. And then I'm going to come back and make a few more closing comments. So let's watch the actual video of the two candidates and then get into some of the articles.
Well, let's pick up on another issue which divides you and the justices that whoever ends up winning this election appoints could have a dramatic effect there, and that's the issue of abortion.
Right.
Mr. Trump, you're pro-life, but I want to ask you specifically, do you want the court, including the justices that you will name, to overturn Roe v. Wade, which includes, in fact states, a woman's right to abortion?
Well, if that would happen, because I am pro-life and I will be appointing pro-life judges, I would think that that will go back to the individual states.
But I'm asking you specifically, would you
If they overturned it, it'll go back to the states.
But what I'm asking you, sir, is do you want to see the court overturn? You just said you want to see the court protect the Second Amendment. Do you want to see the court overturn Roe v. Wade?
Well, if we put another 2 or perhaps 3 justices on, that's really what's going to be, that will happen. And that'll happen automatically, in my opinion, because I am putting pro-life justices on the court. I will say this, it will go back to the states, and the states will then make a determination.
So Donald Trump has stated his view on overturning Roe v. Wade. He says that because of his pro-life position, he will appoint pro-life Supreme Court justices. And when they overturn Roe v. Wade, that the abortion laws will go back to the individual states. You might get some states like liberal leftist New York State that will legalize abortion for any or all reasons. And then you might also get states, for example, like Alabama or something like Texas, that would totally ban abortion within the confines of those states. So he's mapping out a position that is not as good as some kind of a constitutional amendment against abortion, but it is something of a major improvement over the situation right now, where basically every state is forced to tolerate, to promote abortion because the United States federal government, through the court systems, insists that every state enforce abortion. And Donald Trump is simply laying out his vision about how he wants to handle abortion in our secular nation today. And as Christians, we can get behind that. It's not as good as we want, but we can get behind that. We can work with that. And getting rid of that terrible Supreme Court decision, Roe v. Wade, is a first step in getting away and getting rid of abortion completely. So this was a great response. And again, we need to really thank the Lord above that we actually have a candidate in our modern secular age that will articulate a pro-life position. A lot of Republicans now are seemingly running away from the moral issues like abortion, the marriage definition. They seem to be running away from these things. They don't want to talk about them, and when they do talk about them, they concede to the enemy, basically surrendering the moral ground. And here we have a candidate for president of the United States that actually will step up and say, I would appoint Supreme Court justices who will, he assumes, overturn Roe v. Wade. And that is a good thing to have coming from the mouth of a presidential candidate. Is he a perfect candidate? Is he a great guy? Is he a role model for people? Is his moral character impeccable? No way, shape, or form. But he is giving at least some of the key things, giving Christians something that they can feel good about and feel solid in their hearts that they are doing the right thing by voting for someone who is at least pro-life. So the other things are not something that we are happy about. His language, his vulgarities, his crudeness, his other character issues, his immoralities, his adulteries. We can go on and on and on. These things hopefully are in the past. They are not a part of his life today, and hopefully he would be able to govern and preside over this nation in a way that would rise above what he has shown in the past as far as his own moral conduct. But on the issue of abortion, he is solid, and we can feel good about voting for him.
Secretary Clinton.
Well, I strongly support Roe v. Wade, which guarantees a constitutional right to a woman to make the most intimate, most difficult in many cases, decisions about her health care that one can imagine.
So here is a clear-cut statement from Hillary Clinton, the Democratic presidential candidate, and she says very clearly that she is for abortion, that she stands with the Roe v. Wade decision. We have two diametrically opposed views of Roe versus Wade. We have two diametrically opposed views on abortion. And I think as Christians, there really shouldn't be any hard decision here. There is no way under heaven that a biblical Christian, one who takes the Word of God seriously, takes revelation from God seriously, can even be tempted to vote for someone like Hillary Clinton, because this is the issue above all things that you can see her worldview. She is a secularist. She is an anti-Christian, ungodly person who is willing to violate, at a most fundamental level, human life, the principle of human life. Thou shalt not murder, a 10 commandment given by God. And there is no other way that you can classify the murder of a child and taking of a human life, innocent child in the womb, as anything other than murder. She's for that. She wants that to happen. She wants that to be legal. She is for the court ruling that opened the doors to that and enforced it on every other state that didn't have accommodations for that. And so she is clearly in the camp of the death, culture of death. So as Christians, we look at that and say that is a total disqualification of Hillary Clinton for any office. We wouldn't even want to vote her in as a dog catcher because of her insensitivity to human life.
And in this case, it's not only about Roe v. Wade. It is about what's happening right now in America. So many states are putting very stringent regulations on women that block them from exercising that choice, to the extent that they are defunding Planned Parenthood, which, of course, provides all kinds of cancer screenings and other benefits for women in our country.
Hillary Clinton is complaining about the laws that restrict abortion. Roe v. Wade opened the floodgates for abortion on demand in our nation. And now, many decades later, states like Texas and so forth are putting forth regulations that would limit the number of abortions. Since they can't totally ban abortion according to the Roe v. Wade decision, then states are beginning to enact laws that would restrict abortion, curtail abortion, control abortion to a minimum if possible. And Hillary Clinton right here is complaining. She's complaining that these states are restricting the killing of unborn children. Evidently, in her eyes, that's a bad thing. She wants unrestricted killings. She wants unrestricted baby murders taking place all over our country in every state. She doesn't want any laws that would prevent a woman from walking in there and killing her child for any reason or no reason at all. She sees that as a bad thing, that these laws are being enacted, and she wants to try to stop that. And so, if anything, she would want to appoint Supreme Court justices that would strike down every law that would restrict abortion in any way. And again, as Christians, we see this as a part of the culture of death. She is spreading death far and wide, and she's spreading it as fast as she can. Now, she looks at Roe v. Wade from the eyes of a secularist, and she totally, utterly supports it. And she would pledge herself to supporting it to the extent that she would appoint judges, almost give them a litmus test that they must support Roe v. Wade or they cannot even be considered. So clearly, again, we see the great division here between one candidate who is pro-life and the other candidate who is pro-death. I don't think there's much of a choice as far as a Christian is concerned. You have to go with pro-life. You must reject the culture of death.
Donald has said he's in favor of defunding Planned Parenthood. He even supported shutting the government down to defund Planned Parenthood. I will defend Planned Parenthood. I will defend Roe v. Wade, and I will defend women's rights to make their own health care decisions.
Secretary,
and we have come too far to have that turn back now.
So there we hear it again and again and again. She will defend Roe v. Wade, the infamous abortion decision. She will fight for Planned Parenthood, even after we have these expose videos that have been released in the last year or two, showing that Planned Parenthood is so corrupt as an organization that they will actually talk casually about the selling of baby parts, aborted baby parts. They will actually negotiate prices for buyers of aborted baby parts. They're so callous, they're so hard-hearted. So much as this culture of death has spread that the people in the organization of Planned Parenthood will sell aborted baby parts. It's not enough to rip up a baby through abortion, to kill a baby in the womb. It's not enough to do that. They have to actually profit from the parts and the baby, mangled baby parts. And that was on the expose videos that were shown. Many states, as a result of that, have moved to defund Planned Parenthood. Donald Trump said he wants to defund Planned Parenthood, at least the abortion part of Planned Parenthood. And Hillary Clinton has made it very, very clear that she wants to keep Planned Parenthood going. She wants them to keep on aborting babies in the womb. She wants to keep them ripping up, shredding babies in the womb for the mother's convenience. And she will stop at nothing to defend Planned Parenthood, Roe v. Wade, and the entire abortion culture. We've never seen a candidate go so far as to say, this is the hill I will die on. I will defend Roe v. Wade to the death. I will defend Planned Parenthood to the death, and I will oppose any regulation on the culture of death in any way I can. So we have a clear statement of how much Hillary Clinton has bought into the culture of death. And do we want her as president? No, we don't. We want to keep someone like that out of the White House as much as possible.
Indeed, he said women should be punished, that there should be some form of punishment for women who obtain abortions. And I could just not be more opposed to that kind of thinking.
Well, Hillary Clinton is criticizing Donald Trump's earlier position that he made months and months ago, that he feels that if Roe v. Wade is overturned and abortion on demand is no longer the law of the land, if a woman has an abortion in violation of the law of the state in which she lives, then there must be some form of punishment for breaking the law. Now, evidently, Hillary Clinton says, no, a woman can break the law and not expect to have any kind of punishment. I don't understand that kind of thinking. If we pass laws making any certain activity illegal and then someone willfully violates that law, of course you're going to punish them in some form. Of course you're going to uphold the law. If we don't punish women who have illegal abortions, then we are undermining the rule of law. We don't have a law. So what good is a law against abortion if there's no punishment for those who violate the law? It just makes common sense. Donald Trump's position on this is totally and positively correct. And anyone who would question his logic on this point really isn't thinking through the issue. Of course you would have some form of punishment, or else it's not a law. That's simple.
I'm going to give you a chance to respond, but I want to ask you, Secretary Clinton, I want to explore how far you believe the right to abortion goes. You have been quoted as saying that the fetus has no constitutional rights. You also voted against a ban on late-term partial birth abortions. Why?
Because Roe v. Wade very clearly sets out that there can be regulations on abortion so long as the life and the health of the mother are taken into account. And when I voted as a senator, I did not think that that was the case. The kinds of cases that fall at the end of pregnancy are often the most heartbreaking, painful decisions for families to make. I have met with women who, toward the end of their pregnancy, get the worst news one could get, that their health is in jeopardy if they continue to carry to term, or that something terrible has happened or just been discovered about the pregnancy. I do not think the United States government should be stepping in and making those most personal of decisions.
So here we have Hillary Clinton making an emotional argument. It has nothing to do with these cases. We're not talking about a medically necessary operation or procedure. We're talking about a woman deciding that she doesn't want the child very close to term, and so she goes in to have an abortion. That is immoral. That is unacceptable. Hillary Clinton is trying to confuse the issue. She's trying to say, oh, this is a difficult decision and all of this. Well, you don't even give a person a decision to murder another person. I'm sure if you want to talk in language like that, you could say the person who goes up and murders their spouse, it was a difficult decision, but they had to do it, and so forth. This is rationalization. We don't want that in our culture. We don't want that culture of death.
So you can regulate if you are doing so with the life and the health of the mother taken into account.
Mr. Trump, your reaction?
Of course, the problem with that is that the health of the mother is defined so broadly as all she needs to do is have a psychologist or a psychiatrist say that her health is impaired, stressful health or financial stress or whatever, and she can have the abortion. So that is a misnomer.
Particularly on this issue of late-term partial birth
Well,
abortion.
I think it's terrible. If you go with what Hillary is saying, in the 9th month, you can take the baby and rip the baby out of the womb of the mother just prior to the birth of the baby. Now, you can say that that's okay, and Hillary can say that that's okay, but it's not okay with me. Because based on what she's saying and based on where she's going and where she's been, you can take the baby and rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month on the final day. And that's not acceptable.
Well, that is not what happens in these cases. And using that kind of scare rhetoric is just terribly unfortunate.
On this point, Donald Trump is exactly correct. He is actually factually correct that a woman can, with some kind of bogus statement from a psychiatrist or a doctor, a physician of some kind, she can walk in and have her late-term baby aborted, and for just selfish reasons or for so-called psychological reasons. Hillary Clinton doesn't like it characterized like that, but that's exactly the way it is. It will be ripped out of her womb, exactly what Donald Trump said. And Hillary Clinton doesn't like that language. She doesn't like it characterized that way. She wants to sugarcoat it. She wants to euphemize it. But she knows in her heart that what he just said was absolutely 100% true. And now she wants to try to frame it in a different way and make it sound better. But it's the same thing, and she knows it.
You should meet with some of the women that I've met with, women I've known over the course of my life. This is one of the worst possible choices that any woman and her family has to make. And I do not believe the government should be making it. You know, I've had the great honor of traveling across the world on behalf of our country. I've been to countries where governments either forced women to have abortions like they used to do in China, or forced women to bear children like they used to do in Romania. And I can tell you the government has no business in the decisions that women make with their families in accordance with their faith, with medical advice, and I will stand up for that right.
Again, we have another case of empty rhetoric, deceptive rhetoric. She is a big government. She wants government into every area of culture and life. And here on this issue, all of a sudden she becomes a libertarian. She doesn't want government involved in this part of life. Well, you can't have it both ways. If you want government involved in every part of life, then you've got to have government involved in this part of life. If you don't want government involved in every part of life, then you don't want it involved in this part of life. So again, she is contradicting herself on this very point. She's also trying to use the emotional appeal She's trying to say this should be reserved for the woman, private decision with her family and her faith community. But this, again, is smokescreen for the culture of death, and we have to fight against this kind of empty rhetoric.
All right. But just briefly, I want to move on
And
to another
honestly,
segment.
nobody has business doing what I just said, doing that as late as 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 days prior to birth. Nobody has that.
All right.
Well, welcome back, and I wanted to just wrap things up by saying that, again, we need to thank God Almighty that there is a candidate who is willing to actually articulate the pro-life position in a very secular age. And so you can say everything you want about the character problems of this man who is running on the Republican side. You can list a whole handful of reasons and more why he is not fit to be president. But there is one reason that he is fit to be president, and that is his views on human life. He is in favor of doing something about the terrible abomination of abortion, and we need to be thankful that he's willing to take that position, because it's not a popular cultural position. It's not easy to take that position. It's fraught with all kinds of difficulties, as he has found out in his run for the presidency. But it is mostly the most closely Christian position of the candidates. So it pretty much leaves you with one candidate if you're going to vote this year, and that is the one who votes pro-life. The other candidate has disqualified herself because of her atrocious views on human life. She simply does not respect the baby in the womb. She does not respect human life enough to stand up against the abortion industry. And in fact, she is a promoter of the abortion industry. She has earned the high marks of Planned Parenthood. She has won their support. In fact, they're supporting her campaign. They're giving money for her campaign, so endorsing her. So it's, as a Christian, it's very clear, if you're going to vote this year, if you're going to vote for a candidate, and it should be that way anytime, if you're going to vote for a candidate, it has to be pro-life. It has to be one who respects human life. That's our Christian values. You cannot be a Christian and consistently vote against Christian values. And so I would encourage you to cast your vote for a pro-life candidate. And we'll see you back here next week on another edition of Christian Answers. God bless.